Three, two, one. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Lo-Fi Horror Guy. Welcome to another episode of the Lo-Fi Horror Guys growing on you live. And today we're going to have on an absolutely awesome, very cool, just what a sick guest. We're going to have the one and only Human Furnace from the band Ringworm. And not only, being a vocalist in the band, he is an artist. He's a tattoo artist. We're going to have so much here to talk about. I cannot wait to have him on here. We're going to be having us a good time here, having us a good chat. Let's get it in, man, here, and get this bad boy rolling. Hope you guys had a good Halloween, had some fun. Getting this. There we go. What's going on, James?
What's up?
Thank you so much for being on, man. Absolutely. Yes, sir. So,
what's up?
First off, let me say thank you for taking the time today, man. I truly appreciate this, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good.
So, first off, the show kind of breaks down. We have a couple of, icebreaker questions, just a couple of things right off the bat. And then the remainder of the interview is about you and your craft. And then I have one finale question that I wrote just for you. So if you're all ready, man, we're going to dig right in.
Let's go.
All right. First off, let me ask you, my wife and I do some traveling. If her and I were coming through the Cleveland area, coming through Ohio, what's a local restaurant or a local food staple according to the Human Furnace that we'd have to stop by?
Well,
maybe even pre-pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it used to be a place called Sokolowski's, but they just closed because of all this bullshit. So other than that, I don't get out too much for food. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm not the guy to ask for that, really.
All right, good enough. I mean, I dig it. Hopefully they bring that on back, and when we come through, that'll be
we'll see
back around.
That place was pretty awesome, but yeah, it was another casualty of all this crap. So,
what a bummer. Shit.
Yeah, but there's always like places like Melt and stuff like that everybody goes to. Seems to like. So, there's not a shortage of places to eat in Cleveland. That's for sure.
For sure. Right.
Yeah.
Now, ask you as well. If you could have a side project right now with any other four members, let's even say alive, if you could have a side project with any other four band members, who would be in your band?
Fuck, man. I don't know. That's a fucking hard one, dude. I don't know.
Even if something pops in your head throughout the interview, you could just, this guy.
Yeah. All right. We'll go back to that one.
Okay, cool. All right. So, obviously, you being in bands, you've been active for years and years, even decades, but you're also an artist, you're a graphic artist and a tattoo artist. I wanted to first off hit on, you telling us where your interest in art and drawing started.
Well, that's pretty easy. That just started out as soon as I could hold a pencil, really. And then it just naturally progressed into like comic books. And then once I got introduced to the world of comic books, then it was kind of off to the races. They kind of opened everything up for me. So
sure.
From there, it just really expanded just from art for movie posters and art for album covers and stuff like that. Seeing that as a young kid, I had a lot of records and stuff around the house. So that just kind of stirred the pot, and it was really the only thing I was good at. So, that's what I've always done. So it was, there was really no question about what I was going to do with my life, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Now, as far as like some of your earlier stuff too, do you remember certain things, like certain drawings or certain designs, where you kind of felt like you had something you could do, other than it just being a hobby?
Well, even at a really young age, I was already kind of hustling for stuff like that. Like even when I was like 11 or 12, I was doing, posters for, weddings and all types of like logos for businesses. I was already hustling when I was in like 8th, 9th grade, trying to make money drawing pictures. So,
Okay.
um, yeah. So like I said, like I was, as soon as I could figure out that I can make money doing it and I didn't have to have a real job, uh, I was on it really quick. So yeah.
Okay. How did some of the gigs, with like local businesses reaching out? How'd you land those?
I was always the kid that could draw, so
Okay.
in school or whatever. I mean, of course, there was a lot of other good artists, but that's all I did. I'd get busted for drawing in class, drawing on the desk, drawing everywhere. So, when it came time for that someone needed something, I was always the obvious person to ask.
Yeah. Okay.
So I always got that. And then after a while, I'm like, well, why don't you give me $15, then I'll do it. Give me $20. And then, I just
Start
so I
using your
didn't
head a
have to
little
have,
bit. Yeah.
well, just so I didn't have to have a real job. So,
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And kind of what I do now, even to this day, most times it doesn't feel like it's a real job, but it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you get to do what you like, it's not as bad as, some jobs.
Yeah, punching a clock or something. Right. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of work and I work around the clock at just about everything, but, beats a lot of stuff.
Yeah, right. I mean, and
Yeah.
let's hit on that for a second. Some of your pieces, just the absolute like intricate, fine detail that is into it. Kind of goes into my next question as far as what is the longest piece that you've had. What's the piece that's taken the longest to complete, and how long do
Well,
you think that it took?
I would say the last thing that that came out, I got a couple things that are just about done that aren't out yet, but
Ooh.
last thing I did was an album cover for Ringworm guitar player Matt Zorg, his other band called Shed the Skin, a death metal band. The cover art for that took about 500 hours. Yeah,
Damn.
it's maddening, really. But yeah, no shit. So yeah, so that's probably the longest piece that I got going. But if you see it, you could kind of understand how something like that could take that long.
Right. Right.
But I obsess about details that no one will ever see. No one will ever notice or see it, but I obsess on it. So I suppose it's the end result that matters,
Right.
when it comes out looking. And that's just kind of how my brain works, I guess.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
even if it's something where others might not see, it's something where the detail is what you're looking for, and if it might not be there, it might be something that might pop out at the end result, and you having that that patience with it, I think really shines through in the end results.
Well, yeah, the patience thing is that's probably the biggest gift that I got is patience, because when you spend that much time on something, it's really easy to just at some point just say fuck it, I don't give a shit, let's just get the thing finished. But you push through, and when you're done, you're done. So, but yeah, that one was a little over the top, but and it took months and months. Even when we were on tour, we'd play a gig, and as soon as we got to the hotel at night, I'm setting up camp and I'm drawing.
Okay.
Everyone's drinking. I'm in my hotel room drawing. So,
Right. Okay.
but it had finished. So, but yeah. So
Man,
that was a long one.
I hope you set up some sort of contract for like a salary on that motherfucker, because boy, oh boy.
No, not really. No, friends, right? Friends.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy.
It's really hard. It's really hard for that type of stuff, because the type of I don't do it all that often because it takes so long to do. So it's like when you're doing it for commission, it's like how do you charge like that? It's like you charge by the hour. Who's got 3-4 grand anymore
Right.
to pay for an album cover? Hopefully some people do. But
Yeah. Right.
but I make some money off of it, and and the piece comes out, it looks cool, and So
Absolutely. Okay. And
yeah,
I mean, as far as like with your artwork eventually spawning into tattooing, where and when did tattooing come into the picture?
that came in a long time ago. That I've been doing tattooing for like 30 years, I think. I started around 89 or 90. And like a lot of the guys, my age, guys, girls my age, whatever, um, tattooing just happened because it wasn't the same as it is now. You have a lot of people now that grew up watching like Miami Ink or LA Ink or whatever it is. And the people that were, say, I don't know how long that show's been on the air or off the air, but they grew up watching it as a young kid, and they like grew up and they're like, my whole life I wanted to be a tattoo artist. It's like it wasn't like that 30 years ago. Nobody
Right.
wanted to be a tattoo artist. You just kind of fell into it because it was a natural extension of your art. Plus, it was a way to make money too.
Hmm.
And it just kind of, for me, it just kind of I just kind of fell into it. A few of my friends had started doing it, and a lot of my friends were starting to get tattoos, so they would come to me to draw it up for them. Like, I want to get this, draw this up for me, and then they would take it to somebody else, and then eventually just kind of eliminated the middleman, and
Did it yourself.
I just started doing it. It took a while. I mean, it wasn't as easy to learn the craft as it is now. Like you could just go on YouTube and search up a video like how to tattoo, boom, and then
Right.
not that that makes you good right away, of course, but I mean, there's so much stuff that's easier now. The technology, definitely you could fast track yourself to getting good. But
Yeah.
a long time ago, it took time. It took trial and error. And you always continue to try to get better. So
Yeah. Sweet.
that's kind of where
Can
that's yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Can you what can you tell us
Yeah.
about, like the earlier days and like your apprenticeship when you were first getting into it? Do you have one of the stories where you're
Well,
just getting your ass whooped all the
no, I mean,
time and
no, no, no. Like, see, for me, it was a little different. A lot of people did apprenticeships and stuff. But I mean, again, I'm not nearly, I haven't been doing. I've been doing this for 30 years, but there's people that have been doing this a lot longer than me. So they
Mhm.
probably have a lot more stories. Like when you talk about some people that started in like the late 70s, mid 80s. I mean, I pretty much did things the wrong way, so to speak. I kind of just started doing it, and kind of through trial and error, I learned what not to do, what to do, and where if I took your standard apprenticeship, I probably could have just asked somebody, could have just asked whoever was teaching me, and they'd be like, "Don't do that." I'd be like, "Okay," but instead, you work that out on your own. So, plus, when I started, there wasn't too many tattoo shops. Now there's a tattoo shop on every corner.
Right.
It's big business now. I mean, you can't go into a bar or throw a rock and not hit someone who's like, I tattoo, and well,
Right.
it's just how the business is. But back then it wasn't like that. So, what was the question? I forgot. I'm trailing off.
Just as far as like your earlier days with
Oh
your
yeah. So
apprenticeship and
yeah. So I mean, it wasn't. I didn't take a formal apprenticeship. I basically just fake it till you make it, pretty much. Like the first shop that I worked at, I pretty much lied about the amount of experience I had.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
and fortunately for me, I had a drawing background, so it's like I could draw, so that helps. It's not essential, but it helps. So a lot of times I just coasted on pure, I guess, artistic talent when I didn't actually know the craft of tattooing. So it's like, I worked it out. I figured out how to translate how I can draw into tattooing. So, and that was a tough transition because obviously the style that I draw is really detailed,
Mhm.
and there's a balance there that took a little time to figure out what's going to look good as a tattoo and what isn't.
Yeah,
So,
right.
um,
What
yeah,
what is, like an approach with some of that? That was actually going to be something I wanted to hit on was,
sure,
with tattooing sometimes, the less is more is a little bit
yeah,
more effective, whereas, your artwork with prints and paintings is a lot more
right,
detailed.
sure.
What is some of the balance with that for you?
Well, I mean, just you know, I mean, there's so many different styles now, and you know, you can get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously you've seen tattoos that are hyper detailed and some that are more that are just basic and traditional. So tattooing's weird. It's like you don't know the end result. I mean, you have the longer you do it, the more you understand like what's going to look good in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, you know? So it's a waiting game. Sometimes you see tattoos that are brilliant, you know, they look unbelievable. And then you have to wait to see how they age, you know, you have to wait
Right.
15 years just to see how well that tattoo holds up.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's just it's a balance. You just got to look at each piece individually and figure out, you know, the longer you do it, you know how. I mean, I have the benefit of, you know, a lot of years of experience
Right.
that may not age too well, you know, or you know how to approach a certain piece and how to do it so it will age well.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
You remember your first tattoo?
yes,
What
I
was
did.
that one?
I tattooed a buddy of mine, Brooke. Um, I traded him. There's an old Cleveland death metal label called Seraphic Decay, and their logo was like this heptagram with like this goat in it. And so I did that on him, and I traded him for an original Exorcist poster, which
Oh
I still have
shit!
up in my house somewhere. Yeah. So
Nice,
that was my
nice.
first. Yeah, and actually, I see it every so often. It still looks pretty good. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, yeah,
Damn.
yeah. So that was my first one,
Okay.
and I figured
Okay.
I
All
was pretty.
right.
I'll say this: I was pretty fortunate when I was coming up because a lot of my friends had some bad tattoos. You know, because it wasn't like it is now. You know, there wasn't tattooers everywhere and tattoo shops everywhere, and the industry was still really young comparatively to now. But I was fortunate. I had a lot of friends with some bad tattoos that they had really nothing left to lose. They're like, if you think you could fix this, go ahead. So I had tons of guinea pigs to work on, and
Right.
myself. Dude, I did fucked up shit on myself, on my legs, and shit like that. You know, whatever. Most tattooers you see that are my age, probably their whole legs and their thighs are filled with. So, but
Right.
you know,
Right.
you figure if you're gonna fuck somebody up, you might as well be yourself first. You know, fuck
Yeah.
yourself first, and you know. But I was pretty fortunate. I had a lot of friends that had a lot of trust in me. They're like, "Yeah, go ahead," you know. So,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, I mean, and now all these years later, now owning 252, you know, what are things that come into the shop, you know, nowadays that still excite you after all these years of doing it?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes it's not what you think. I mean, I get like at this point, I get a lot of detail work. People, you know, I I, I came up in the time where you know you had to learn how to do everything if you want to make a living at it. If someone comes in and wants a Tasmanian devil or a Bugs Bunny
Hmm.
or a tribal armband, you did it. You know what I mean? You know, and you have to learn to be. You had to learn to be do everything. You know,
Right.
whereas you know these days people are like, well, I only do this. You know, I only do this type, and that's fine. You know, but I kind of I enjoy after doing it for so long. If someone comes in and wants a Bugs Bunny on their arm, I'm stoked. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Not everything has to be the Mona Lisa, and if it makes them happy, that's cool. And sometimes that stuff's just easy and fun, and it's cartoony, and that's cool. But on the flip side, you know, I have, you know, leg sleeves of just like black and gray, you know, hellscapes and, you know,
All
stuff like
right.
that. And that still really gets me going too. But I don't discriminate too much as far as what people want. I try to, and if they like it, if it's a fun, easy design, then sometimes that gets me stoked too, you know?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. That
Yeah.
you know, I love that. That's
I
awesome. I
do
mean, and now,
that. And like if people like, obviously being on this show, I like to do a lot of horror type stuff. Um, so that gets me going too. If someone comes in and they want, you know, a Michael Myers, a Freddy, or something, I'm working on a whole half sleeve, so, or full sleeve, I guess, at
Sick.
this point. But,
Damn.
that type of stuff gets me going too, because that's kind of in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sweet. I mean,
Yeah.
and another aspect of your artwork, with the graphic design, you have heavy metal baseball. What can you tell us about that and where that started?
Well, that's I love baseball, so I rarely watch. I always listen. I listen to the radio, and
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, I don't have time to. I work 20 hours a day. If I'm not drawing or doing something, there's something wrong. So, or it's because my body just tells me you've got to shut down for a minute. So,
Right.
basically, that started while I was listening to the games. I started to like incorporate. There's the old standby, the kind of the mashup logos and that type of thing. So I started doing that with the Cleveland Indians, and that kind of morphed into like me transferring like player logos and team logos into like every mashing them up with like every heavy metal band that I loved, and that kind of took off. And then basically people saw them, they're like, dude, put that on a shirt, I'd totally buy that. And I'm like, okay, all right. And then that kind of took off, so now it's become a cool alternative merchandise for the team. So
Yeah, for sure.
and a lot of the players have the designs too. I send them out to the players and stuff like that. So it's been a fun thing to do, and it's a labor of love, because I just like baseball. It's problematic being a Cleveland Indians fan, but they tend to not win. But what are you gonna do? That's my team. So, but that's been a fun thing to do, and we got a cool little community. A lot of friends and people from out of state that are from Cleveland that still follow the team and all that stuff. So, plus I've gotten offers from people from other cities, me wanting to give their team the heavy metal baseball treatment.
Oh, okay.
Well, I could, but it just, I don't know. We'll see, but it just doesn't feel right. I like to keep it home based, but
yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's just a cool thing. Cool thing I like to do. I wear a lot of hats, so
Okay.
It's just another thing to occupy my time, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really funny. I mean, going on the site, some of the descriptions of things like the T-shirt. It's like wash it a couple of times. It's going to be your new favorite T-shirt, and the hat descriptions and shit. They're kind of witty, but it hits on a description where people are like, you know what? That's what I want. That's it right there.
Exactly. Well, there's no point in bullshitting anybody. So if it's just tell it how it is, you know what I mean? It's it just is what it is.
Yeah, that's sick. All right. Do you have a favorite design that you've released for
No.
HMB?
No, not really. I they change with because players come and go, so
Yeah. Okay.
it kind of varies, and sometimes it gets tough because if you go to the site and you see kind of what I do, sometimes you kind of run out of cool bands to use, so as your inspiration. So it's challenging sometimes to come up with new designs, but in that type of arena, when you're the mashup logos and stuff like that, I mean it's not anything that hasn't been done before, but it's still pretty cool, and
right.
It's fun to try to figure out something new.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different take on it, and it's something, interesting as far as, like somebody, with you having your interest in the Cleveland Indians and being able to mash up metal and that, or you have some stuff that's like horror, related. And so, I mean, it is cool. It's something different.
Basically, I mean, there's tons of there's always the old standard that well, if you're into metal or, punk rock or whatever, then you can't like sports, it's like going back to when I was in high school. It's like, well, are you a jock or a punk? You know what I mean? You can't be both. It's like, well, you know what? You kind of can. Right. You can listen to heavy metal and be a punk rocker, but still love sports, So that's kind of where I fall. I was, played baseball as a kid in high school, and that just kind of stuck with me. So
Right. Yeah, I think with us it was always punk and hardcore and then metal. Like you couldn't be into both of them for some reason. It was like you had to, if
Yeah.
you're
Well,
fucking with
well,
Slayer or
for us,
Exodus,
well, for us around here and people like, my peers and people my age, you listen to everything too, because we kind of all came up younger listening to like Kiss and rock and roll. And then it was like Sabbath and Van Halen and stuff like that. And then it became like Iron Maiden and Motley Crue. And then it was like, at that point, then like kind of hardcore and punk started entering your life. And then it was Suicidal Tendencies and DRI and COC.
mm-hmm.
And Dead Kennedys and Misfits, and then it just kind of morphed, and then there was like Slayers and Carcass and Morbid Angel and Entombed, and then it just all kind of morphed into one thing. And then by the time you get to where I'm at, it's like your spectrum of what you listen to is all across the map. So
Right.
that's always been really cool, and especially at shows in Cleveland, there wasn't like distinct genres of bands yet. There was not, everything's really put into like certain genres now. There's different this and that. But early on, it's like, if you wanted to have a show, it wouldn't be out of the question to have like a punk band, a death metal band, and a hardcore band on one bill. And
Right.
that was cool because,
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't that many bands like to distinct from. It was a show and it was all different. It was really cool. So, there's always been a blurring of the lines across the board as far as, even music and sports and, all types of shit. So,
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing. I mean, with you hitting on with shows like that, kind of having, like a mixed bill. That was something I feel like, especially with hardcore and having metal bands. There was even sometimes like dance acts, and like earlier on the set, maybe there was like an acoustic thing or something like that. But it was cool because you discovered different things, and you
absolutely.
got there, and you might not have been in the mood for something, but you're like, shit, they had a lot of energy,
Yeah.
and there was so. I appreciate that, and I wish that they had a little bit more of an up and up, coming thing. But I mean, right now there's not shit. So
yeah, right now everything is fun is outlawed. So, but yeah, I mean that's something that I always appreciate, because sometimes you go to a hardcore show or a death metal show, whatever it is, and you got 3-4 bands on there and they all sound relatively the same. It's always nice if you have different styles. Like if I set up shows, I try to spread it out a little bit so not every band's sounds the same. It's just much better, because you might find a new band that you're like, oh, never heard of them, but that's pretty cool, so that's something maybe that'll come back around. I mean, who's to say? I mean, things are going to be really different when whenever things come back to the way they were and shows start really happening again. I think it's going to be different, but it's going to be it could be really what's the word I'm looking for? It could just be really cool, because there could be, because what you're seeing now is a lot of guys and girls and bands that do their band, but they branch off like during this weird downtime. They're starting to do passion projects, shit that they wouldn't do otherwise, but they've got all this time on their hand and they're like, you know what? I've always wanted to do this. So now they're doing that. And it's, it's a lot of people, a lot of musicians doing different things. So putting out records of, stuff that they wouldn't have time to do normally with their other bands being busy. So yeah, hopefully that'll be, I don't know, that'll be something.
Yeah, I'm hoping after everything, it's a little bit more inspiring. Did you find, as far as when booking shows, having mixed bills, that it kind of it pushed, it more into a good time, or did you have a lot of times where it was bullshit with, with a metal band with hardcore kids, and was there a lot of clash there, or was it mostly a good turnout?
I mean, just coming from my point of view, I always liked it because, like I said earlier, I kind of came up listening to just about everything. So I've never really quite understood the and this day it's not that crazy but or prevalent, but I mean, like, I only listen to this. I don't listen to that because that sucks. I just listen to this. I listen to metal strictly, everything else sucks. I don't listen to punk rock. It's like I always enjoyed it, you know what I mean? Because I never understood it not having a broad spectrum of musical tastes. I don't know, it's counterproductive, even if as a listener or as a musician itself, not to listen to all types of stuff, you know? So,
Right.
and then like, I always appreciated it. Like, just like, wow, there's a completely different band. And sometimes if you're that completely different band, you stand out from, you know, Ringworm's played on bills where, you know, we're the one thing that's not like the others. And you may be hated. You may be people like, but at least they'll remember you, you know, they'll be like, remember that one band? Yeah, I fucking hated them. You'll be like, yeah, that was us. You know what I mean? But at least they, you know, you don't get, you know, forgotten about, or just kind of you get blurred in with the rest of the group. You know what I mean? So, you know, take that for what it is.
Yeah. Well, you know, the one thing I can say, so my introduction personally to Ringworm was 2008 when the Acacia Strain had my man on Baby Buster. And that was like one of these things I had to rewind over and over because I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, it was just a completely different approach. That was my introduction to Ringworm. Then, you know, pulling into, you know, your guys' albums and the more thrashy, hardcore. Loved it. You know, that's one of those things that I've always loved, is having features on albums as well, you know, and, you know, somebody who might have a little bit of a different approach.
Yeah, that was a pretty fun thing to do. I knew Vincent for a while, and he hit me up. He's like, hey, do you want to do backups? I'm like, and honestly, I wasn't too, I knew about their band, but I didn't listen to it too much, to be honest with you. But I'm like, yeah, sure. I like Vincent. And I'm like, yeah, cool. So they flew me out to Connecticut, and they were recording with Zeus out there. And they're like, well, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, just get me some beer and a bottle of whiskey. And we went out there and met with them. We went out to dinner and stuff. And I went in there and blasted out the lines in like 5 minutes, you know, like first take, maybe did a second. I'm like, you want me to do it again? They're like, nope, that's good. I'm like, okay. And that was it. And then none of those guys party. So I ended up drinking as much of the beer and as much of the whiskey as I could. And it was pretty cool. And it was pretty funny too, because, you know, I did that, and then it takes a while for the record to come out. So I didn't really think about it too much after I did it. And then I read some reviews, and you could kind of tell the people that were reviewing it either got a digital copy or they downloaded it somewhere, because when it got to reviewing that song, they're like, I really like what Vincent did with his vocals in this spot. You know, they didn't read the credits or anything. They're like, wow, he really did something different on this part that I liked. And I just kind of laugh about it. I'm like, yeah. So, yeah, that was funny.
Bastard.
Yeah, it was a fun thing to do. So, yeah, I like those guys. I don't get to see, you know, no one gets to see too many people anymore, because I had run into him on the road somewhere, but, you know, unfortunately everyone's got to take a year or two off of that stuff, you know?
Right.
Go back.
Well, you know, I wanted to touch on too, you know, as far as what was 2020 bringing anything with Ringworm? Was that going to bring in anything special? You guys were just about hitting on some sort of, you know, maybe a 30-year, you know, anything special with that?
Well, we had, it was kind of strange because we had two tours lined up, and we were 2 days away from leaving for the tour. That's when everything got declared a national emergency, and everything just got really weird, and people were like, you know, I don't know if we should do this, you know. And that's kind of, you know, bands tours where you were just kind of waiting for them to pull the cancel button on it, because you're like, you know. And then eventually we had to. So yeah, we had an East Coast tour, a West Coast tour lined up, all types of stuff. So that got shelved. Yeah, but we have a new record that's pretty much written. So we, you know,
shit.
And that's been in the works for a while.
Right.
So, but kind of working on different stuff. Matt's doing a few other bands. I did a movie soundtrack. So everyone's doing other stuff. So we'll get back to that. But yeah, like towards the end of the year, we're going to do we're going to do a live home video. We've got, next year's our 30th anniversary. So, which is a pretty big milestone. So we got a lot of stuff planned for the rest of the year and into next year that we're going to be putting out. A bunch of stuff. So we even though it's been a down period for everybody, we're kind of being constructive with it.
Sure.
So we're doing what we can, minus going out and playing live.
Right.
You know, which is what most bands kind of have to do if you want to just just keep going. So, and unfortunately, a lot of bands just without touring, without that. I mean, they do it for a living, so it's like, fuck, what are you going to do?
Right.
A lot of bands that do it for a living, I mean, we do it quite a bit, but it's not our livelihood,
Right.
Bands that is their livelihood and touring, because you don't sell records. So it's like, you got to go out and tour. When you can't do that, it's tough going, so, you could plan on maybe taking a year off to do a new record. And that happens quite a bit with bands, but like planning on taking 2 years off your job, that's
right.
That's a hard thing to do. You got to go out and get a real job again. So no, seriously, it's like, there's people that have been in bands for as long as me, 30 years, and do it for a living. Then all of a sudden you don't have that anymore. You've got to figure out how you're going to pay the bills. So It's tough. It's for a lot of people, but on the flip side, bands are doing a lot of things to stay creative and still put out new material and wait this whole thing out. And as soon as you could go out and do it again, it's going to be a flood. It will. Yeah. Hopefully a lot of the clubs will be able to sustain it all, and there'll be places to play.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's one. I mean, that's a point I've never thought of before. Yeah, that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, bands could be ready to go out and tour tomorrow, and 30 to 40% of the clubs are like, we're closed. No more club here, and you're like, shit. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it is what it is.
Right. Well, and so you're mentioning, like the newer music coming out, and Death Becomes My Voice. That came out in like May of last year, right?
If you say so. I don't remember.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. I was just gonna say, I didn't. You guys have been working on some new stuff right after.
Well, that? Matt's a workhorse, man. He's a writing machine. So all he does is write. So he's had pretty much a new Ringworm record musically written for quite a while. So, and we probably at this point would have been actively preparing to get, if we weren't still on tour, we would probably be actively getting ready to get in the studio to record a lot of it. So, but we actually just started, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, we started jamming again, which is the first time in almost a year we had played, we'd rehearsed together. So sweet. That was kind of, you got to get back in shape, especially me doing vocals and stuff. It's hard to not do that for a year and then just jump right back in and start screaming your fucking lungs out. So,
have you done anything in prep, in the time that's passed, as far as not being able to do that? Is there anything even at home that you do, just exercises?
Not really. I mean, I can't. It's hard to walk around my house screaming at the top of my lungs. The cops would probably be here, so my cats would probably not appreciate it. But, I mean, you do what you can. I try to stay in shape, I guess, so I don't completely phone it in. But yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of doing it. You know what I mean? And it didn't take us long for us to get back in the groove. We've been doing it so long. It's like 2-3 practices and we were tight as fuck again. So it's like, all right. So we've got, like I said, we've got some things planned coming up from that we're going to do that should be out by the end of the year and then into next year. Some new releases. We're going to do a home video type thing. A lot of stuff for 30 years is, anyway, you look at, that's a milestone that we're actually still here. And I'd like to think we're still relevant and people still give a fuck. So, I mean, it's more than half my life. So it's kind of an important
Yeah, it's huge. That's huge. Absolutely. Right.
come to quit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me hit on, anybody that's been following your social media or the band's social media. You've been posting up these sick poster flyers. They're horror themed.
No.
Tell me about some of these and where where that started.
Well, that's just a love for my love for like 80s horror poster art, which is something
Hmm.
that's, it's back again a little bit in a retro way, but I'm a child of, the VHS revolution, when I was
Right.
11 or 10, 11. This is when like the mom and pop video store was just exploding.
Yeah.
And when you got a chance to go in there and pick out a few movies, it was all about the cover, the box art. You know what I mean? You didn't see a trailer. There was no trailers. You didn't watch YouTube for trailers or anything. So it's like
Right.
the cover art was key. You know what I mean? If it was
Yeah.
just the crazier, the better. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of fell in love with that. I wish they still did that, but like I said, they do it in a kind of a retro way now,
Right.
but that was my love for that. And then of course it's like, well, why not make a flyer interesting? So I would just, use some of my favorite, box art, VHS box art, and just put our name on there and try to figure out how to make that. So, and that's fun. It's just fun for me to do. People seem
Okay.
to like, I like making them. So, yeah. So
Okay.
I just started doing it, and then it was like, okay, we got a tour coming up. How many shows? Okay, 20. All right, let's figure out what 20 movies I want to use. So it's just combining my love for that stuff and the band, and it's fun to do. You know,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Now, I mean,
yeah.
you're mentioning, movies cover art. Do you have a couple examples on hand, of movies that the art just really drew you in?
Um, well, we'd have to go back to the mid '80s, I guess, or the mid to early '80s. I guess
Hmm.
stuff like Reanimator, um,
Yes.
stuff like that, like Scanners, um,
Okay.
video stuff like that, where it's just like The Fog, maybe,
Okay.
um, House. There's just a lot. It was just all. It's all just The Thing.
Hmm.
You know, just the whole like the whole. There's a really interesting movie that's out if you could find it. It's called 24 by 36, and it's
Okay.
basically talks. I don't know if you've seen it, but it just
I
talks about
haven't. I heard you talk about it. I've been
yeah,
wanting to check that out.
it, it's semi depressing because it talks about the rise and fall of the movie poster and how it started off as paintings and almost collages and fantastical, you know, of a vision of what they thought their movie is. Sometimes it's real shitty movie, but the poster art was fantastic.
Right.
But they try to capture something with that, and it kind of documents the rise and fall of that style. So it's semi-depressing because it's hard to say if that'll ever come back into mainstream cinema. But
Yeah.
but whatever. I don't know I forgot where the question was, but I don't know. It's
Just as
just
far as the horror, the
a
cover art.
lot of those movies, like there were so many on the shelves when you went to the horror movie section. It was just like, whoa, and just rows and rows of stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of got behind you there. I mean, you got Friday the
Yeah.
13th and Critters and all that stuff.
Let's see. I
We
got
got Creature there,
the
Creature of the Black
the
Lagoon.
the thing over there.
Yeah, I
Those are
mean,
CEDs. You remember those?
yeah, sure. Yeah,
That was
see,
a
that's
shitty
like,
technology.
but that's the thing. They were art. It was art. I mean, that was
Right.
part of the whole package. It was the artwork that sold it. For newer movies, basically, you know, you've got the star of the movie and his face needs to be on it. You know what I mean? Or
Hmm.
her face be on it. So it's like, and then you got the secondary stars or the co-stars, and they need to be represented on there too. So basically, what you end up is with a poster of like three faces. And
Yeah. Right.
that's what the industry demands, or their management. Like, we need to the star needs to have, 50% coverage
Hmm.
on that movie poster. You know what I mean? And it's just, you know,
It's
whatever.
wild.
Yeah, it's wild,
But
but
even like the original, like say if the older Star Wars posters or the Star Wars covers, where it still had the actors, but it was a painting, it was an animation, there was,
yeah,
things, going on around it. There's ways that
yeah,
you can do that stuff and still make it
sure.
visually
Yeah,
appealing.
right. Well, I mean, and some of the newer Star Wars stuff, they still kind of keep that same feeling, but it's
Right.
it's a little different now. It's always a photo based off a photograph. Like Drew Struzan did all those old ones, and they were just fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, people don't want to pay for that. People don't want to. They like, oh, we'll just have someone do it with some photographs and digitally enhance it, and it
Right.
is what it is. That's why I still feel so fondly about like the 80s and early 90s, 70s, 80s, early 90s. Just even like back in the 50s and 60s,
Yeah.
just that style of art and um, yeah, I mean, there's still plenty of it to go around, but I I wish they would kind of bring that back. But hey, that's how it
Yeah.
goes.
Now,
Yeah, it's how,
and touching on, going to the local video shop and, just kind of sifting through different things based on the cover. It was always a risk. You had your Friday or Saturday night and, you're like, okay, this is depending on whether this is going to be shit or good. It was kind of, you were always kind of
well,
working on,
I didn't care. I didn't even care. Like my Friday or Saturday ritual pretty much consists of my mom before she had to go to work. She would take me to the video store and she'd wait in the car, throw me $10 and be like, all right, hurry up and go in there and get a couple videos. So of course that took about 45 minutes and she's pissed off. And she didn't really care what I got. She's like, you get some movies? Okay, let's go. But I would go in there and just like look around like, holy shit. Like, look at that one. Look at that one. Tourist trap. I'll get that. You know what I mean? It didn't matter what it was.
Yeah.
And then when you got it home, you were just so excited. The whole like ritual of getting it and putting it in and watching it and making a thing out of it. It was something special, especially as
Hmm.
a young kid, because there's nothing like it. Now it's
Right.
like you could, find something online, you don't like it, halfway through you can just turn it off. You know,
Right. Right.
when you got a VHS, you watch that whole thing, and even if it sucked, you're like, that was awesome. That was I
Yeah.
can't believe I watched a movie in my living room. This is crazy. And they swore, and you'd see titties and all this shit. Blood and all this shit. You're like, holy crap, this is like the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, I still get excited about that stuff.
Hell yeah.
Um, yeah, because
Yeah.
it just makes viewing fun. Even when the movie sucks, that's kind of good. There's the good bad, the good bad style movies, but
Right.
you know,
Right.
it, I feel fortunate to kind of come up, being younger and impressionable when that everything was just hitting right there. You still had the
Yeah.
art, you had the home video explosion of stuff, and all the exploitation style of movies that came about after. It was
Hmm.
just fun time,
Yeah,
to
for sure.
be a, be a to be a horror fan. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Now, if I could ask you, today with it being, okay, yesterday was Halloween, but with it still being around that time, if you were to make a flash sheet at the shop and you were to do like a Halloween themed flash sheet with 5 horror characters, who would you
Uh,
put on that today?
well, let's see. I mean, you have your all stars, like you have your Freddys, your Jasons, your Michael Myers.
Well,
I
if it
would,
was your personal favorites.
yeah, I would probably do Creature of the Black Lagoon. I would do something that had to do with the Thing. I've always wanted to do the cover of Scanners.
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
yeah. Ooh, it's a tough one. That's a tough one. You get there. Maybe some Reanimator stuff. The
Okay.
Fly. Um,
Oh
I
yeah.
think that five. That's five.
That's
But
5. Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, I've done a lot of horror stuff, horror tattoos. But I like when I get to do some of the oddball stuff. Like I said, I always bring up Reanimator, but that's such a fun movie. Stuff like that, something outside like all your horror icon all stars. I like The Fringe. Hellraiser,
Yeah.
and stuff. But like, then there's also like the wacky shit, like Reanimator and Salem's Lot, and just all types of stuff. So I'd probably
Yeah.
do that. I
Yeah.
don't know if people would get it. you know, they'd probably go like, "That's cool. I don't know what movie that is." I'll be like, "Okay, whatever." But
Well, it's about what they want, I mean,
yeah, sure. Hey,
I've got
who
old
had-
Jordy Verrill here. I don't know if you see
oh, yeah,
that or not, but this
nice,
is all horror movie stuff on this arm over here. So
right?
yeah, just
Cool.
little obscure pieces.
Yeah, sure. That's cool.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, honestly, I'm not going to try to take any more of your time here. This is going to be the wrap. I do have my finale question, but this is your opportunity, James, just to let everybody know, what you have going on, some newer things.
Sure.
This is your time, man.
Yeah, right on. Well, I guess let's just cover all the bases. Just for me personally, I've got a couple things coming out music-wise. Like I said, I did a movie soundtrack. I wrote the movie. The movie soundtrack's coming out.
Okay.
Ringworm has a bunch of shit coming out from here to the end of next year, or to the end of this year, to the beginning of next year. 30th anniversary stuff, all types of special releases and shit like that. My other band, Gluttons, we're getting in the studio soon, so we've got a few things coming out. All the other guys in the band, Matt, he put out three new records. He's a writing machine, so he's got lots of projects coming out. Same with the other guys in the band. Everyone's doing a bunch of different shit. Yeah, other than that, just tattooing like crazy. I got a bunch of like drawing projects that just never end. So those, I'm extremely busy all the time, but that's okay. So it's got a lot of stuff happening.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, and all really, really cool stuff. Like you have your shop, you have your artwork, and then your work in the bands too. I mean, it's absolutely sweet, and it's such, it's great to see, the hustle, and it's kind of a bummer with everybody, what's going on, but like you said, it gives an opportunity for people to kind of pick up and, get back to maybe some of the essentials. And
yeah, kind of doing stuff that they would never do otherwise, and that's kind of refreshing to see, but yeah, so most people that I know that are in this downtime, they're taking advantage of it, and they're staying as busy as doing everything they can, minus getting in a van and going out on the road. So that's what you got to do, because people, I like most of my friends, we've been doing it for 30 years or longer, so it's all we know. It's like,
right.
It just stop. You just find other ways to do things. That's all.
Right. Yeah, sweet. Yeah. Okay, awesome. All right, well, this brings us to our finale. Like I say, thank you so much for your time, first and foremost.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask, and this is, kind of a little bit loopy here, but if there were a horror movie today that were announced that they were going to reboot, remakes are kind of a thing that's kind of tough, because a lot of times they're a bummer. But if there was a movie, they were making it right, they were doing something really, really sick, and they said, look, James, we need you to do the cover art for this. We need you to do the poster art, everything for this, anything visually. What movie would you wanna take on?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I mean, I could go back to some of my favorite movies, but then again, it's when you start like Creature of the Black Lagoon would be interesting. One's been, toyed around with a few times as far as remakes go. At one point, it was connected to John Carpenter, but that's another thing.
That would have been sick.
Yeah, that would have been cool. That's water under the bridge. Now it's like, it shouldn't be redone. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that shouldn't be. Oh, that's tough, man. That's a really tough question. Yeah, fuck, man. I don't know. All my favorite movies have been remade, defiled in some points, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's far and few between.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess for lack of a better answer, I would probably say The Creature of the Black Lagoon. I'd give that a run for its money. So
sweet.
Very
cool. Yeah, that's certainly what, especially with remakes, like they have something like, I don't know if you saw some years back, they remade Cabin Fever, and that movie was already, at the time, it was only like 6 years old and they remade it. You know, it's like sillier shit like that. I don't understand.
Yeah, people's attention span's really short. So like us, make it. I mean, there's stuff like Martyrs. I don't know if you saw Martyrs, like the French
Oh
movie.
man, the original
Fantastic.
one.
Yeah. And then like a few years later, they'll remake it for American audiences because I don't know, no one can sit through menial, minimal subtitles to follow the plot. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
they water it down, and it's just like, you know, just trying to make it palatable for kind of a bovine American audience. But
Yeah.
I mean, and
Right.
sometimes they could remake stuff and it's okay, but
Mhm.
usually the originals are the way to go.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah,
I think one of them, I mean, with you touching on Creature from the Black Lagoon, I think it's cool because it is so far back, but if it were done right and it were approached and the original material were appreciated, I think that's where, a successful, jab at it
sure.
could come from.
Yeah, that's kind of why. I mean, we kind of out of time, but the whole story about the Creature of the Black Lagoon remake, that I followed that closely for years until the trail went cold, as they say. But that's a pretty interesting story about how that almost got made and didn't get made, and still got made, but they changed some things around, and then they changed the title of it, and pretty interesting, interesting story about that. But you
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
or maybe I would do Shockwaves. That would be kind of cool if you ever seen Shockwaves.
Oh man, shit. Yeah, that'd be
That'd be,
sweet. That's kind of like a, under the radar movie that
yeah,
is
Peter
sweet.
Cushing, pretty good. So
Hmm.
but I always liked that movie when I was a kid. Those Nazi zombies scared the shit out of me. It really did.
Yeah.
That scared
Yeah,
the
for
crap.
sure.
That and Children of Dead things still to this day I have
Ooh.
watching it. I don't know why. It just scared the shit out of me as a kid, and then you go back and watch it, you're like, well, that's not that bad. But something about that movie scared the crap out of me when I was
Yeah.
younger. But I don't know.
Nice.
But
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, look, man, let me say we could talk all day here. I
yeah,
don't want to take up any more of your time. I truly appreciate it. And thank you so much, man. I really appreciate
no
you
worries.
being on.
I appreciate it.
All right, you take care. Lo-Fi Horror Guy, Human Furnace. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Dun, 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 dun. He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi, a horror guy. Yeah, baby.